So we really, this time is there, so it's. Okay, go ahead. Right, it's kind of strange to be speaking to the empty room. That's okay. Let's get started then. So welcome to Memorial and our welcome session for career development at the Internationalization Office. Just wanted to do a sound check. Everyone can hear me? Am I speaking loud enough? Yes. Great. Let me know if I need to adjust anything. The presentation here. All right. So before we get started with the content, I just wanted to do a quick land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that Memorial University's campuses are situated on the traditional territories of diverse indigenous groups, including I think it didn't cover very well, but we're on the island of the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk and peoples. We acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Innu, and Inuit of this province. So for more information on our commitment to learning, healing, decolonization, and indigenization, I encourage you to visit the Office of Indigenous Affairs and or the Indigenous Student Research Center if all of this is very unfamiliar to you. So after Malin, welcome in Mag, in Innu, and So just a quick overview of what we hope to accomplish with this session. We're going to go over the career process, the career services offered at MUN, career programs and events, as well. Yes, the labor standards, assisting in movement and a lot of doors to overview that. You can move the camera. Oh, okay. Okay, so that work? I think it's with that. Okay, all right. Great. So just a quick overview of the career planning process. So this is something that's ongoing throughout your life. So I'm sure even to get here, you were engaging in the process itself. As you are here, we also encourage you to think about your next steps and then also to plan for what's upcoming after graduation. So it's an ongoing process. It requires extensive self-reflection and occupational research as well. So if you are hoping to gain employment here in Canada, you really have to situate yourself in the local environment. Networking is a huge part of that process. So if you're not kind of engaging in that work right now, it might be a little bit slow going for you post-graduation if you only start thinking about those aspects at that time. So at MUN, we use an interest and strengths-based approach to career advising. We're always trying to work with you to identify what you recognize as your strengths and then going forward from there. So if you right now in your current situation are not even sure of your strengths at the moment, then we're going to start there, try and help you identify what those are so that we have something to work from. We do not provide job matching services. So this is really important to recognize. There are some services through community groups and the government that might help you with this as well. But essentially our services are mostly targeted to students who are looking to learn about tools and resources that can help you plan or execute your next steps. So typically job matching services, those are ones that you would pay for to private organizations. That is not what the university engages in. We help you with all things related to career development, but at the end of the day, you have to be the one to be applying for jobs. You represent yourself. So again, step one of the career planning process is to be learning about yourself, do that on an ongoing basis. Then you can move on to exploring career options, see what's open to you, what kinds of opportunities you might be interested in, some of the industries that you might want to explore. Then you can reflect, assess, and reassess. So sometimes this does involve a little bit of trial and error. That's the natural part of the learning process. If you don't actually attempt to make those first steps, you won't know what's going to be a good fit for you or what's not going to be a good fit for you. So you have to kind of go back and see, evaluate how your career progression is going. And if there are some things that you discover along the way, all the better, then you know what to explore, what not to explore, depending on your preferences, your priorities, so on and so forth. Then you can make a plan and implement it, and then it kind of cycles through that. So even once you get a job, of course, your career doesn't necessarily end there, right? You're looking for growth, you're looking for progression. And so it's constantly cycling. So consider the following questions as you move through your studies and work. What are you good at and what do you care about? And then going from there, is there a place of intersection at the workplace? How can you build your skills to position yourself for your future? And how do those things align with what you care about? So these are things that we just want you to keep in mind as you embark on your studies here. So I think I already emphasized this enough, but essentially every experience you gain can serve to inform you in some way. So as you are going through your coursework, maybe you realize, some aspects of your studies are really not interesting. Make sure you make note of that so that when you go forward looking into careers, you know not to focus in those areas, for example. On the flip side, you might find a new passion. Maybe you joined a student group and you realize that you're like really interested in events management or something. In that sense, you can also kind of carve your path in the way that you desire. So you kind of have to be evaluating, but you also have to be seeking opportunities and experiences. If you're not getting that exposure, then you have less information to work with to inform your future. So career services at MUN. So we have a team of staff dedicated to providing resources and promoting the career development of our students. We offer one-on-one appointments on the following topics: resumes, cover letters, interviews, LinkedIn profiles, career exploration, job hunting, networking. It's a whole bunch of stuff. So whatever is related to career development, you can probably book an appointment and just talk to us. So the appointment types on Navigate are going to be along these lines. Just pick something at the end of the day if you're not really sure. It doesn't matter so much about the category. What matters is that you book that time and speak with an advisor. Alumni and their spouses, alumni and student spouses can also access career services free of charge. So current students should use Navigate to book an appointment. This is a platform that's integrated with our schedule, so it's the best way to book an appointment so that you're not doing constant back and forth through email. It also is set up to automate appointment reminders. So, if your appointment's coming up, I think it's within 24 hours, it'll send you reminders so that you don't forget to come in, which is really helpful. If you book through email, we're not necessarily going to be doing all that kind of work for you. We're just trusting that you put that in your calendar. If you're alumni, however, at some point you might lose access to your MUN email. So just keep in mind for the future that this is a resource for you when you graduate. And if you're looking for employment support, you can email cdel@mun.ca, preferably using your MUN email address or providing your student ID so that we have some reference to your student profile. If you're booking an appointment on behalf of a spouse, you would also be probably using this email, but if you can use Navigate, that's totally fine too. You can book an appointment on behalf of your spouse to Navigate. That's what I should have said. Any questions about that? Okay, cool. No? So there are some other resources. We really encourage that you consult your own faculties because these are the people who are working in the space that you're probably interested in exploring. Right, so if you're in business, contact the business profs, interact with the professors that you have or the instructors or even your peers. They might already have work. So be engaging in those conversations, ask them about work if you're looking for it. Student groups are also a really great resource. So a lot of times you can volunteer through them. And oftentimes those connections may also lead to employment. So either maybe a peer is working somewhere and they're hiring, they would tell you if they know that you're looking for a job. On the other hand, some student groups, they become so powerful that maybe they receive funding to actually employ people in a sense. So there's opportunities like that. For example, Munsu has some paid positions, and some student groups, I think, work closely as well with labs on campus, for example. So it's through all those connections that you might be able to also find employment. For Faculty of Business Admin students, they have a dedicated student success center, and they organize a variety of career-related workshops and events specifically for business students. They also have a portal where employers can post job postings specific for business students. So if you're in that faculty, I would encourage you to look into their services. If you also want to book an appointment, they also have a couple of people who can advise. So that would be like your first point of contact rather than the general career development office. There are also a bunch of community groups that offer employment services. So I have a few listed here. We've got the YMCA, which has dedicated newcomer programming. There's also the Association for New Canadians, and there's also Stella's Circle. Just wanted to make a note about the YMCA. They, in addition to employment services, they have other ones as well. So there's time to explore that. Maybe we can go back and take a look there. There's also the Student Volunteer Bureau. So this is located at University Center on the 3rd floor. So this exists to give MUN students a platform to promote volunteer opportunities, to support students in their self-development, and to create a community of MUN volunteers. They are really well connected, and volunteering often can lead to employment as well. That's often how people end up finding their first job opportunities after graduating. So would recommend exploring the SVB. And then of course here at the IO we also have supports. So we've got stuff like activity, discussion group, and coffee club. So this is a great way to network with students in addition to just like having a bit of a social life as well. But we always hear stories of students meeting one another and then like being like, oh, turns out, my employer is hiring. Is anyone interested? And then they kind of refer people to their workplaces through these kinds of groups. So really exposure is a really big thing. Don't get stuck in one place of campus. Okay, so like, the IO can always be a point of contact for you if you're an international student. University Center is also a very student-friendly space. And then you have your own buildings that you navigate to for your classes. But beyond that, there's so many other places you can go, right? Even the cafeteria, for example. There's tons of students working there. So if ever you're like, oh, how did you get your job? Just go and ask people who are working there. They can give you tips. You need to be asking questions and exposing yourself to different spaces, different activities, different groups of people. Oops, sorry, next slide. Okay, so we also run a few career programs through the Career Development Office and also through the Center for Entrepreneurship. So I've just got a few linked here. If you haven't heard of the MUSEP, ISLEP, or GradSLEP programs, you're a little late for this semester. So the job postings for these programs, which are for on-campus part-time employment opportunities, are always released usually in like the second full week of the semester. So they closed today, actually, for these ones. But you will have an opportunity come the spring and the fall to apply for the positions here. So if you're an undergraduate student, there are usually like around 700 on-campus opportunities for you to apply for. And if you're an international student specifically, and also an undergrad, then you can apply for the ISLEP. GradSLEP opportunities are designated for grad students. There are not so many of these, but it's always worth checking anyways. I think this semester there may have been between 20 and 30. And so that's something to look into. If you find, a professor or an employer who might be interested in participating in the GradSLEP program, you can refer them to the School of Graduate Studies and see if they can come up with a partnership so that, come the next semester, there might be a position that would be applicable for you to apply for. The SWAS is the Student Work Experience for Student Parents. I forget what the A stands for, but essentially if you're a student parent and you have a dependent here, you can find a supervisor or a staff member on campus to supervise your work and be paid for it. There is an application that you have to submit with that staff member's signature, but essentially that one is kind of a nice hidden opportunity. If you're a student parent, you can kind of create your own job by researching who can supervise you. So the SWASP is available there as well. Maybe just to show you what this looks like, I will click on the link to show you what the web page looks like. So all of the details for each of these programs are listed here, and then you would just click on whichever category applies to you. So all of that is there for you. And the instructions are listed on each page, so you kind of have to be very careful to make sure you're following the instructions. If you don't, then oftentimes you kind of just miss out on the opportunity. So there is a lot of information here available. It wouldn't really make sense for me to go through every single program front to back, so I'm just kind of leaving those links there for you to access. The main point to remember, though, is if these programs interest you, you have to pay attention to kind of this web page at the beginning of every semester. Okay, so the program that I run as the International Student Career Advisor is the Professional Skills Development Program. So this is a 6-week non-credit offering for international students who are looking to familiarize themselves with best labor market practices. On occasion, there are paid work opportunities available. Actually, this year we offered 60 hours instead of 30, but that's dependent on government funding. So the main core part of the program is not actually about the work experience. It's actually about setting yourself up for success. So the topics are career development, career pathways, how to identify your skills and actually talk about them. We also go over best practices for how to build your resume and cover letter. And then we also talk about job searching, navigating the job market, using LinkedIn. This one is a huge one. So if LinkedIn is not a platform that's well utilized wherever you're from, here it is quite prevalent. It's really useful, even just for networking purposes, not necessarily to find a job. So if that's really unfamiliar to you, I really highly recommend that you start looking into how to use it. We also go over interview skills and strategies because, you know, there's a lot of people who may successfully put in an application for a job, but then don't do so well in the interview. And usually that's the part that really matters. So sometimes it's that last stage that kind of snags people. And so we help people with that. We also do an overview of provincial and federal labor standards, just a very brief one, just so that people know, you know, what the existing rules and regulations are. And then we also have a workshop on intercultural communication. So kind of more about the cultural competency side of things, because there is sometimes a struggle, even once people, especially international students or newcomers, get their jobs, they have a hard time staying in them because there is a bit of a cultural disconnect. So just knowing what to expect in terms of workplace expectations and standards and that kind of thing, that's kind of what we dig into with this last workshop. So they're an hour and a half each for 6 weeks. It is a bit of a commitment. It does take a bit of organization as well. And I will say that it's all full for this semester. So what I recommend if you're interested in joining the program is sending an email, and then you get added to a wait list or like an emailing list. So every time we offer the program, you're notified. Also, I think everyone's already on the IO listserv, and it's advertised through that as well. So if you're paying attention to that, towards the beginning of the next semester, an email goes out to say registration is open. The Center for Entrepreneurship also offers the Experience Ventures program. So if you're interested in entrepreneurship and potentially launching a business, there are some programs catered towards this. So the Center for Entrepreneurship is a really good resource to look up on campus. Just look it up there now. Find it. So they have a bunch of programs, and every now and then there's also funded opportunities. So I highly recommend if you're interested in any kind of venture, maybe you have a small business idea, maybe you're thinking about launching a business in the future, there's a bunch of stuff here that is probably applicable to you. And they do a good job of kind of outlining what is involved. So there's lots of professional development opportunities here. And then another place that might be interesting for you to explore would be the Center for Social Enterprise. So I just put a like to the keyword. So this is another little unit at Mind that focuses on social enterprises. So these are businesses, but ones that also have kind of an interest in creating benefits for individuals and communities as well. And so there are quite a number of like startups in this sense with that social initiative integrated, and they also on occasion offer job opportunities. So kind of knowing which units post things of interest and how to navigate the websites is really helpful. So those are two that I would highlight. And then finally, in terms of career events, we have stuff that's ongoing throughout the year, such as workshops, but then we also have like key scheduled events. So for this year, we've got Career Week coming up between March 4 and 8. In that week, there's also going to be a job fair for those looking for employment in the summer. So keep an eye on that week. There's also the school and graduate fair, which happens in September. This one is kind of the big flagship event. So it's a great way to meet employers. I think this past year we had like over 120 employers and graduate schools. So it's a really huge fair. It's a really great way to kind of situate yourself and see who's employing, not just locally, but also in the province and then also nationally. There's people who fly in for this event. We also have Career Month in November. So usually that month features like a whole bunch of events. And then there's, as I mentioned, workshops and other things that you can participate in. So there's a few places that I would recommend you kind of save to your favorites if this is of interest. First of all is the career development page on LinkedIn. So this is something that is relatively up to date. Like we try to post things that come up. Sometimes employers send us job leads as well to post, knowing that we have a pretty good candidate pool. We have a decent reach there. So you can follow career development on LinkedIn. I can't show you right now because it's excited. That's fine. There's also my.mind.ca. So this is the usual portal that you have. And if I have the employee version, so I can't necessarily show you what the back end looks like, or sorry, the student side looks like. But there is a directory, or sorry, like a kind of a job board that employers can access, and they will post jobs there as well. Let me just see if I can pull that up for you. This would be useful for you to see anyways. So keep in mind that once I log in, you're seeing the employee side of the interface, but I should still be able to access some of the other bits that you can see. So if I log in here, so the on-campus employment programs I was talking about earlier, those jobs are posted here just for future reference. If ever you're wondering how do I find this, and the website will link to this as well. So that's the campus employment side, but there's also off-campus job postings. So this is what I was talking about when I was mentioning that employers can hop in and post jobs here. So there are some jobs that get posted. Employers will create an account to post jobs specifically advertised for students. Now, I will say, and this is something that's part of kind of, I don't know, that's going to be part of your orientation anyways, is that there are such things as job scams here. There is employment fraud here. So just be careful about that. Our tech guy is doing his best to ensure that employers look legitimate when they sign up for an account and post stuff. But on occasion, here and there, there's like people who kind of sneak by. So even through this, just be aware that you have to pay attention and make sure that you're researching the employer before you apply. That's something that we recommend anyways, regardless of what platform you use. Same thing happens on LinkedIn. Same thing happens on Indeed. Same thing happens on Facebook. So every time you're applying for a job, be sure that you're kind of verifying yourself, you know, is this a legitimate employer? Can I find their website? Is their email traceable? All of those kinds of things. Obviously, if an offer seems too good to be true, if they're kind of like employing you right away without trying to get, you know, any kind of information from you, if they're asking for personal information like bank account details and stuff before you've even started working for them, like it's very sketchy. So just have some awareness around that. And if ever you have doubts, email the IO. Like we're here to kind of help you with that. So yeah, but there are job postings here, and some of them, I wouldn't even say some, I would say like a good majority of them are legitimate as far as I've experienced with that. Okay. Any questions about that? Yes. Okay. There's also the student life calendar, so that's also linked in the presentation. There's all sorts of events here listed by student life. So student life is like this whole big umbrella of anything to do with the student experience at Memorial, and career services falls under it. So when events are posted here, it's for the entirety of student life, but just keep in mind, like, you know, anything fun might still provide a networking opportunity. It might not necessarily seem career related, but it kind of could be at the end of the day. So that's another page to keep an eye on. If you want really career specific stuff, I would just recommend following career development on LinkedIn. We try to keep it very career focused there. I think that's it actually for most of the, actually no, I think I skipped, oh, what's that in here? Oh, you know what? Sorry. I made some changes to the presentation and just refresh here. So there were a few things I wanted to cover because normally we have somebody from the Legal Information Clinic, or sorry, the Legal Information Association of Newfoundland and Labrador to come in and kind of talk about like legal information that's applicable for newcomers. So I've linked their website here. Obviously, I'm not going to really speak on their behalf, but I thought it might be good to kind of go over some of the information that's been presented previously and just go over some basics there. So their website is here. If ever you have questions about labor standards or like employment rights, I would recommend you reaching out to the Legal Information Clinic here because they have a dedicated staff for people who can answer these kinds of questions, right? So I'm not a lawyer, and no one here at the IO, unfortunately, is a lawyer, but there's still resources for you here. So if ever you need, you know, one-on-one legal support, lawyer referrals, or just information to interpret some of the labor standard regulations, you can contact Maria here. Her email's listed as well as her phone number. But what I can show you in the meantime, is kind of this big reference document that might be helpful for you to know about. So just to backtrack a little bit, every province in Canada has its own rules and regulations with regard to labor, right? So the minimum wage here right now is $15, but other provinces have different amounts set. So just be aware now it is $50, changed in October 2023. And then this overview document that I'm about to pop open and show you was last updated in October 2022. So it's going to give you an old number there, but now it is $15, just so you know. So before we take a look at this, just be sure to note that there is an official website for labor standards for this province specifically. So again, if you move provinces, if you decide to seek employment elsewhere after graduation, maybe you'd have to refer to that province's labor standards division for their information. So they kind of give you an overview of like what they exist for. But I think the important thing to know is, again, so you can't reach the Public Legal Information Association. They also have telephone counseling services for labor-specific inquiries. So their contact information is also listed. So I'm just going to pop this document open to show you what kinds of questions are answered here. And it's worth emphasizing that this kind of discusses the minimum that an employer is required to do here in Newfoundland. So it's the bare minimum. Like this is the minimum standard. Oftentimes workplaces will have their own, I guess like labor agreements, maybe they're unionized. So those agreements usually are on top of this minimum. Does that make sense? Okay. So if an employer isn't paying these minimums, then there's like something very wrong there, and that's fine. You would probably seek, support through other organizations. So there are some, I guess, rules and regulations about, for example, the number of hours you can work in a week, legally speaking, what overtime means, what kind of breaks need to be given, and also there's stuff about wages and tips and vacation pay and that kind of stuff as well. So when it comes to wages, again, because this was updated in October 2022, it is outdated from that respect, but pretty much all of the other information holds, okay? So for example, if you're wondering, what is the definition of a work week when we're talking about, employment, here is defined as a period of 7 continuous days used by an employer, or if they don't designate a week, a period of 7 continuous days beginning after midnight on a Saturday. So depending on where you're from, the definition of a week might be different for you, but here it begins after midnight on a Saturday, which I think technically means Sunday, Sunday at like 0:00. Okay. Other questions that you might have, how many days can an employee be required to work each week? So employees must be granted 24 consecutive hours off work in each week of employment, where possible the day after be on a Sunday. So there's like stuff like this that they outline. It's very practical information. So if you have no idea about what the labor standards are in this province, then I would recommend you go through this document top to bottom if you're looking into work here. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, cool. I guess I'll just open it up to questions. It can be regarding career development. It can be regarding finding work. Anything you like.
Should stop recording.